Hello, everyone. It's Renee Baribeau, and welcome to the Shamans Cave. And
Hi, I'm Sandra Ingerman from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and welcome everybody. It's wonderful to have another session again.
so today's show is about integrity. And I loved this, that integrity is doing what is good, right, and proper, even when no one is watching. And so I thought that that was a really good place to start this show. And no one is watching. So we spend a lot of time alone in this society. So what do we do with ourselves when no one's looking, and that can go a long way towards looking at how you make choices about other things. And later on in the show, I'm going to do a journey to your Integrity Gatekeeper. So this should be a fun, full-packed show. And I know Sandra has a lot to say about this as well as I do. And one of the places we can start with, it's not an integrity to teach shamanism on Facebook. And so we don't.
Right, yeah. Well, Renee brought up an interesting point that in our culture today, we're alone. And oftentimes people aren't aware of what we're doing and how we're acting. And so oftentimes we go, well, nobody's going to actually know that I'm doing this, or we rationalize why it's okay. I think we're all great at rationalizing why certain things are okay. But in an actual shamanic culture, you didn't have your own space because, number one, as I've shared on many shows, in shamanic cultures, the culture itself, the community was one organism. So it wasn't about having a private life. It was more about what you contributed to the community that would make the community strong and healthy. But at the same time, all the people, not just the shamans, all the people in the community were dreamers. They got their own intuitions, they got their own insights, they got their own downloads. They talked to the birds, they talked to the plants, they talked to the wind spirits, they talked to the rain. And so actually, the spirits oftentimes gave a lot of information about what was happening with other community members. And so in a lot of ways, there was no privacy in that, we've closed down our psychic spaces, but in shamanic cultures, people lived together, they knew each other, they were family, they could see the changes in their expressions, they could see the changes in their body language. And so people were read, we were all aware of what was going on with other community members. And so when somebody stepped out of integrity, it wasn't like, ooh, I wonder if somebody's going to figure this out. Everybody knew it, but instead of calling you on it, they waited. In a lot of cultures, they waited for you to come up and admit and to speak your truth about that maybe you took an action that wasn't the best for the whole community, and you'd like to do a ceremony to bring this back into balance again.
Absolutely. I was thinking about, if you think about Facebook, it's like it's the best of everyone's life or the worst. Probably no one would really care that I just washed the floor. So we show pictures of the nice sunsets, and a lot of people like to share when they're sick, and family members need prayers, which is not something that I do a lot on Facebook, because I don't necessarily want people sending their energy my way, because I don't know how they're sending that energy. But so there's this whole facade that we have of this feeling that we're really connected when we're really not so connected. I think that would be a great conversation for another day about our mass disconnection, for sure. But all of a sudden, I don't know why this popped into my head. When I had to learn a lot of my shaman lessons by being out of integrity to really get the full, full benefit of, what before I got right relationship. But one time I wanted this relationship so bad that I took out the magic book and I lit the candle. And not only did I light the candle, I put the paper under it, let it burn for a few days. And then I went to this river. You're supposed to toss it in a fast moving river. This was probably before we were a lot more ecologically sound. So I'm dating myself. Threw it in the river, came back home. And within an hour, a friend said, "Hey, let's go somewhere." And I was like out in the yard raking. And they're like, "Oh, all right." And I went, and boom, this person that I had lit the candle on was like in this obscure hallway. And, and I got to see, they were still not available. And there was this whole, you can create any kind of magic you want, but you have to live with the results. And so for me, it was a hard lesson. And, it turned out to be a neighbor. Everyone had to sell their houses. It was a big mess. But, the power, the magic, you can put your magic to your supernatural magic to good things, or you can be out of integrity and put your magic there. And, and it will wind slap you each and every time, for sure. But I don't suggest that as the way to learn, because I had to learn the real hard way. And I could, name 5 more other circumstances where my broken emotional reserve, it was my emotions that weren't healed were leading my magic tricks. And I was out of integrity. So integrity means you have to be spiritually resilient in all areas of your life. And the biggest one that trips me up is my emotions.
Mm. Yeah, I think I think, Renee, you're very courageous in sharing that story, because I think we can all relate, and we can all come up with times when we crossed over a boundary because of our personal needs. And, that's part of where we step out of integrity in our culture sometime. And sometimes, in one of the sicknesses in our culture is that we don't always have people at our back. And, I keep bringing this up on shows because when you have a strong shamanic practice, you start to realize that you have, and I'm saying this in a positive way, light armies, loving armies of spirits and ancestors behind you, cheering you on and helping to lead you to a good place. And we're so disconnected from that. We don't know who has our back. And so we think that the only person who's taking care of us is us. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a lot of times when we cross a line, is when I have a need and nobody else is going to help me with this. And so I have to use whatever tools are available to help me with this, where actually when we hold to our integrity, but we keep to our intention, oftentimes we find that we're led in actually the most appropriate way. And the only other thing that I wanted to say is, as a shamanic practitioner, because of my own challenges in my life and how much I'm teaching right now, I still do remote work, but I tend to take on the most difficult cases. And brought a lot of difficult cases, like somebody's been in a coma for 25 years, or somebody's son or daughter is living under a bridge. And so from a shamanic point of view, I just can't go in as a knight in shining armor and fix the situation, because I don't know, actually, does the person who's living under the bridge want to be living under the bridge and not be saved? What are all the complexities? There's a lot of complexities about a person being in coma for 25 years. And so the most common, again, we are the vessels for our helping spirits. We don't make decisions for ourselves in our healing work. And so the most common question I ask my power animal in any situation like this is, what is the ethical action for me to take in this situation? And he'll either say, it's none of your business, step out, or he'll say, let's go for it. This person is ready for this kind of help. So you can ask for the help of the spirits too, if sometimes you're wondering if you're stepping out of integrity. You can ask for, what is the ethical action for me to take in this situation?
Just back up a second. That was 30 years ago, by the way, Sandra.
Yeah. No, I mean, for all of us. For all of us, we all do things like that. Yeah.
And that happened to me this week when I was looking in at something for somebody, and I had permission, and I had permission. And when I went in the first day, it was like, no, not today, and then the next day it was, okay, today is the day. And so there's layers of permission as well that gets into our integrity. And I think I got into this when I was teaching on the Chef Network, about somebody said, well, what does this wind say for us? What about, the fires in Australia? And I was taken back a second, because it wasn't what I was talking about at all. And then it was like, well, I don't know that that's my business in that moment, because if it was my business, it would be front and center. Like one of my friends is really onto this coronavirus, the virus, and that's not in my vision either. And maybe I'm just too self-centered or not, but there's other things that are more in my vision, but not everything that's out there is for you to latch on to either. And so it's a matter of knowing, what is your work? Because if you're latching on to everything, then you can't be most effective or most present in doing what you need to do. And I think there's a focus that's part of integrity as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that's happening today is in shamanic cultures, definitely they got world news through the stars and through the messages that the wind carried. They did know what was going on in the world. They weren't that isolated. But we're so flooded. I mean, think of it. I mean, in my parents' generation, they didn't know what was going on in the other side of the world. We didn't have that kind of news coverage, we didn't have that kind of media. And so today, instead of dealing with what's happening and joining together in our local communities to bond with the land and to bond with the ancestral spirits and all the living beings on the land, we're just out of balance. And because we're out of balance, more traumatic things are happening in the world, and we're just getting more distracted, because we're just one person who's trying to solve the problems everywhere in the world. And what would happen if everybody decided to do their work and become allies with their land, the elements and the ancestral spirits who taught them how to live on the land in balance? Would we have to be worrying about what's happening on the other side of the world?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that too. Like if I was more in relationship to my community or my team of things, like I think it came to me from a different perspective, is when you're trying to balance, like, okay, I'm in the spring equinox and they're in the fall equinox. Okay. Well, one of the things recently that I've really been being shown by the winds is that that's not my business. Like, yes, I want to be inclusive and have a winter solstice and a summer solstice, an equinox celebration, but I really am not navigating below the equator. I'm just not navigating there. If I'm really honest with myself, that I have enough to navigate with where my sun is and where the moon is and all of this other stuff in relationship to me, instead of thinking that I've got a handle on what's going on elsewhere too. And And that's not, I think we've become so globalized that we're out of sync with what our neighbors need.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just want to make sure that Renee and I are in no way saying that we shouldn't be praying for what's happening
Right.
in other places of the world. Where I know that, you know, the both of us, we're compassionate beings and our hearts are blown open by what's going on. But what I'm saying is the fix so that we don't have to keep dealing with these major world events that bring everybody's attention is if we did as the native people did, and we sang our songs and we did our dances on the land where we live in our community, we wouldn't have stepped out of so much balance. And that's another aspect of integrity, is what are we doing to keep balance in our own lives and in our community, besides trying to run and try to fix everything that's happening in the world, which is impossible.
Absolutely. Another one that I was thinking about last night making dinner was judgment.
Mm.
You know, and non-judgment is a real integral part of being in integrity. Like, I was thinking about when I was in judgment of what somebody else was doing or not doing, then I couldn't be totally present here, enjoying the fruits of something that somebody else had offered to me, because I was looking at what I wasn't getting for myself instead of, wow, look at this. I get to be here and I get to take these great walks and all of that. And it's not my business what somebody else's, how they're not responding. And so, and one of the reasons I left AA many years ago was because I felt there was a lot of judgment about the poor people who are still suffering or really struggling with their addiction still, like that, because I had magically been lifted from my alcoholism at 30, that I was somehow better, that there was somehow that made me shinier star or something like that, when that's not even true. Because some of the people who, you know, live on the street or can't get out of their addictions or die from their addictions, they may be shining a different star that I can't even begin to understand. And so, like Sandra said a little earlier, it might not be her place to fix the guy who's under the bridge at all. I mean, we don't know what agreements or what their whole spiritual journey is here. And maybe they're living that path out to the highest and best possible ways that they could, as we probably all have at one time or another during our spiritual journeys.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, part of the issue, and this really goes into integrity, is that we feel that we have, we feel that it's part of our job in life to save people, whether they want to be saved or not. It's, you know, it's just a codependent part of our culture. It's a really interesting part of our culture. And so we oftentimes try to go and rescue people who are having one of the deepest experiences of their life that is going to change their life in a positive way forever. And we want to remove them for that because we think we know more than the spirits and God has. And it's really interesting for all of us teaching shamanism it's almost like we have to pull the reins back on everybody, because once people start learning some simple shamanic healing methods, they're out healing the entire world. And there's been, well, first of all, there's been times when people knew I had the flu and I couldn't come to a workshop, and sent me so much energy that my fever went up to 108. And We have that to look at that people don't understand. I'm just one small example of people not understanding what happens when a whole group starts to send somebody who's really sick energy that they can't integrate. And also, people do get life lessons from what they're going through. And yes, there are times when they reach out for help and you come in and help. But when a person actually says, and one of my best friends who died of AIDS said this to me, "This is my disease, this is my illness, and I don't want anybody helping me." And that happened to me. That statement was over 25 years ago. And I still hear that ringing inside my head when I want to jump out and help somebody that I think is in need who hasn't asked me for help.
Yes, I think we've all been there. And, integrity is something that to me is kind of at the center of the compass. What I call the awakening compass is, that we know, and we get out of integrity. Like, I can get out of integrity, but the good thing is I can see it a lot faster. And I now, with helping spirits, I have the wind. When I get out of integrity, the winds will tell me really quickly. It's uncanny, but and then I have to like readjust. And a lot of times that means going back and actually making an amends and doing it differently. And we do fall down. And so, but when you can get to seeing, when you know what your barometer is, then you can at least have something to measure this with, because we do want to help people. But why do I want to help people? I had this conversation today. Why do I want to help people? Why do I care if people get it or don't get it? Those, we get into the ego, the self things, like, do I look better if more people get healed from this? Or like last week, somebody said to me, "Oh, I didn't get much from the winds, but it was certainly your good assistance that got me through this program." I'm thinking like, wow, if I were you, I'd go right outside and tell the winds right now that you made a mistake. Those winds brought you those assistants. Those winds, like they're the ones who moved you from that rock you were stuck under, like not my assistants, although they're very nice people, So are we even in integrity with our ancestors? In the last two calls, the last two podcasts we had were about our ancestors, present and past and future. Are we in integrity there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, are we ready for our journey, or do you have more on this one?
For our journey. I'm excited, Renee.
Okay, so the journey that we're going to go on today is we're going to go to find out who our integrity gatekeeper is, and I'm going to rattle, and what we're going to do is think about a time when you had to make a hard choice, like maybe Sandra, where helping the guy with AIDS who didn't really want help, and go to this gatekeeper, and it, you might have yours really in check and really in good, but maybe you're going to find something surprising when you go to the gatekeeper, that they'll tell you that you crossed the line, that that you don't go far enough, or that you don't even bother to ask. So we're going to go to our integrity gatekeeper and find out what keeps us in check. And, if we listen or we don't listen, see what kind of information it will bring to you. And I think I'll just rattle for this one and maybe call to the wind. So close your eyes and listen to the wind. And see yourself somewhere you love in nature. And as you're there, remember a time that you had to make an important choice that maybe came up against your values or your judgment. We're going to go and we're going to find our gatekeeper, the one who helps us stay in check with our integrity. It might be a helping spirit you already work with, or it might be a new spirit. And when you get to this integrity gatekeeper, tell them the situation, the choice you made, and ask, is there something I could have done that would be more in line with my spiritual ideals, my integrity? When you get the answer, ask the spirit helper if this would be a good place to come back and check in whenever you have a crossroad decision to make that could take you in integrity or move you further away from your ideals. Then you can come back and use this journey anytime. Come back to the room.
I actually had a fabulous, unexpected journey. My integrity gatekeeper actually put me on the fast track to be able to, he was more interested in me moving forward than going back to my old choices. And what he did is he did the biggest spiritual cleansing on me that you could imagine. And he said to me, when you are completely spiritually cleansed and when you are in sacred space, you will never make a decision that's out of integrity. So clean yourself spiritually before you make decisions that you're questioning about, and open up your heart, and from a sacred space where you have none of your usual garbage on you, it's all been cleansed, then make a decision. So that was that. I thought that was a brilliant tool for me.
Very cool. I was just shown really quickly something that I had made the right decision on earlier this week, which kind of reassured me that, you know, like my resiliency, my emotional resiliency is getting better, so that I can rely better on, you know, not pushing the send on the email, which is, you know, been one of my bigger things is, and where I decided to wait, and by that evening I could delete the email.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Well, we'd love to hear about your integrity gatekeeper over at the Shamans Cave or under the video below, because we love reading what, you know, what experiences you have, and certainly that you're here and you're supporting the work that we're doing that we really, our gatekeepers say we're doing good work out here.
Yeah, we're getting we're really getting marvelous emails coming in thanking us for the show. And you know, for us, it's about community. We're delighted that we're creating a community where we can talk about some of these bigger issues together. As times ahead get smooth and intense and smooth and intense, we ride the waves together. So thank you everybody for being part of our community, and please let people know about Shamans TV, and they can subscribe there or they can sign up on our email list.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Sandra. It's always fun to sit with you, and we'll talk again real soon.